Meanwhile, we are now going to cut across to Rahul Kanwal for a special broadcast on Mood of the Nation.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching the India Today Group Mood of the Nation opinion poll. Every 6 months, the India Today Group commissions a renowned polling agency to go out amongst voters and gauge for us the mood out on the street. May saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi being landed into office riding on a massive mandate. Has his popularity gone up or come down? How happy are people with the performance of the BJP government? Do they believe that Achhe Din are here? Those are the questions that we will answer over the next 2 hours, and we'll also focus on the key battleground states where elections will be held in a few months from now. I want to begin by introducing our political panel for this program, starting with Shekhar Gupta, Editor-in-Chief of the India Today Group. With us also GVL Narasimha Rao, spokesperson for the Bharatiya Janata Party, a renowned cephalogist in his own right. We've also got renowned cephalogist Dr. Ashok Lahiri. To my left, Siddharth Vardarajan. We've got Kamal Farooqi and Ashok Malik. Manish Tiwari from the Congress Party is joining us on this broadcast. I want to take you through the methodology that's been used by Hansa Research Agency to put together this opinion poll for the India Today Group. The poll was conducted between the 3rd and the 14th of August. One important thing is this poll was conducted before Prime Minister Modi's big Independence Day speech. Just a day before that is when the poll finished. The poll was conducted across 108 constituencies in 29 states and 3 union territories. The total number of respondents in this poll is 12,430. That's a robust sample size which allows for meaningful analysis of the mood across the country. And what is interesting to note is that this is a face-to-face, house-to-house opinion poll. This is not done on the telephone line. Our pollsters actually went house to house and then did this opinion poll, far more intensive than doing it on the telephone. That's the methodology. Shekhar, you want to say anything about what people should look out for before we start putting out the results of this poll?
I think what people should look out for is how long does a new government's honeymoon period continues? Every government has a honeymoon period. This one particularly because it came with a large majority and it came with an affirmative mandate. So the main thing to look at is it being sustained, or when does anti-incumbency begin to set in?
That's an important point. Has anti-incumbency begun to set in just yet, or is Modi's honeymoon period with the people of India still on? Let's play out the first set of graphics in the India Today Mood of the Nation opinion poll. Lots of buzz, lots of excitement, lots of anticipation building up to these results. Here's the first question we asked respondents. How do you rate the performance of Narendra Modi as Prime Minister? Look at this. 10% think excellent, 51% think good. That means 61% of the respondents think that Modi has been a good Prime Minister. Negative ratings are very few. Just 6% think he's poor, 28% think he's average. Let's come to the next question. What do people believe should be Modi's first priority? What is the issue they'd like to see him address first? And very interesting results, because price rise comes in at 18, corruption comes in at 22, but the number one response in this particular question is poverty. 23% of the respondents, the highest number, want Modi to deal with the pressing issue of poverty first. Crime against women comes in at number 4 at 9%. Let's come to our next question. What does Modi represent? Kamal Farooqi and Manish Tiwari might have a very different opinion of what Modi represents, but this is what the people believe. Just add up good governance and development, that gives you 70%. 70% of the respondents think Modi represents the positive attributes of good governance and development. Only 4% think he represents communal intolerance. 9% think he represents Hindu nationalism. 70% think of him as a development icon. Let's come to the next question. What does Modi's landslide victory represent? 70% think this is a mandate for development. 21% only feel this is a result of religious polarization. A massive 70% think His mandate is a mandate for development, which is also something that the BJP and Prime Minister Modi need to remember. And also those in the RSS who are pressing him to go to a more hardcore agenda, more Hindutva agenda. Only 21% think it's a consequence of religious polarization. Let's come to the next question. What do people think of Prime Minister Modi's cabinet? Do they think, people have been saying it's bereft of talent, it's not as deep as it could or should be, but that's not the perception of the respondents in the India Today Hansa research poll. 78% think Modi has a great team. 70% think it's good, 9% think it's bad. That's where we hold this for a moment and I begin taking the first set of responses, starting with Kamal Farooqi, because you would like to believe that there's a lot of Hindutva which is already beginning to be brought onto the center stage. People believe that Modi doesn't represent extreme forces. His is a mandate for governance and development.
No, I agree with you, and I agree with the analysis also. And I think your assessment was wrong that I will be opposing it like this. Even as on today, the general mood of the public is that he has come on the plank of the development and the plank of removing the poverty, working for all 125 crores of the people. People still have faith on this. It has not yet gone down. But
so Shekhar, the anti-incumbency hasn't set in yet?
In spite of what you are saying, in spite of some of the elements who are trying to raise, as you have rightly said, in spite of the people who are raising unnecessarily the issues which are absolutely not relevant.
So Modi's honeymoon period with the voters of India continues at this time?
In fact, it's growing right now. Right now, it's on an upswing. Actually, the gap between the election results and the cabinet formation and the poll is quite short. It's just about 2 months. And this is a popular government. So I think you would expect this to ride high for some time.
Okay. Dr. Ashok
surprises. In fact, the largest surprises are such a large number of people thinking that this is not a victory of polarization, that this is not a government of Hindu nationalists. Maybe again it's too early, but these are the findings of the survey. So these have to be taken very seriously.
And it's interesting because only 21%, Dr. Lahiri, believe Modi's victory represents religious polarization. Most of the people who have been polled think of him as a man of development and governance.
I think the poll results is right because as an Indian, I personally believe that religious tolerance is in our DNA, Indian DNA. So I'll be very surprised if any party, I mean, they can brutalize the country, but winning elections simply on the basis of religious polarization is not possible. And here was a period where, at least for 2 years, people were had become cynical almost. So Mr. Modi, what he brought was a fresh air where, again, we can misunderstand him, that Achhe Din, Modi the magician will bring Achhe Din immediately.
We are coming to those questions in just a moment.
Modi is coming for development.
I want quick response also from Manish Tiwari of the Congress party, because the Congress has been saying that Modi's mandate represents that communal forces have won, that the forces of religious polarization have won. The India Today Hansa Mood of the Nation opinion poll suggests that people are not in sync with what the Congress party suggests, Manish.
Well, Rahul, there lies the inherent contradiction which this government will have to confront. If you look back over the past 2 months, how many debates on governance or governance initiatives of this government have you seen either in the newspapers or in the electronic media? Next to none. Most of the debates that you've seen have been on religious polarization, unfortunately emanating out of statements either given by BJP functionaries or functionaries who are affiliated to the Bharatiya Janata Party or the larger Sangh Parivar. So therefore, if at all, people do believe that this government is there in order to provide development, in order to provide progress and to provide prosperity, then I'm afraid the government is out of sync with the aspirations of the people and not the Congress party.
You make an important point. There's been a lot of discussion, Ashok Malik, about communal tensions in India going up after Modi's victory. Is this something that the BJP government has forgotten, or at least elements in the Sangh Parivar seem to have forgotten? They're getting excited about the Hindutva agenda, whereas people don't believe that's the mandate that they got.
See, two things. One, Mr. Modi and his allies won 38% of the vote. Your poll is saying 70% of the people believe, of the sample you polled, believe that his mandate was a mandate for development. That means many people who did not vote for him or for his allies actually also believe his mandate represents development, and they do not share the apprehensions of TV studios in a sense. Second, the Modi government has been exceedingly quiet, I would say over quiet in its communication in the past 2.5 or 3 months. I think Manish Tiwari is quite right that the op-ed pages and the newspapers and the TV studios have been packed with debates on Hindutva and Hindu nationalism.
Based on comments made by some leaders.
Based on the odd comment made by some person here or there.
Several comments made by some leaders, not odd comments.
Or in some cases, over-interpretation of a comment. I agree. But that also somehow reflects, or somewhat reflects, the fact that the media has nothing else to talk about, because this government is not giving you stories.
Okay. Let's look at the next set of questions that we are putting out. Yes, I want to get you on the next question. Yes, but you want to make an opening point. Yes.
I mean, there's an important message that these numbers convey, a message, a cautionary message to Modi and his ministers, that whatever you think are the forces that propel you to victory, we as voters, as citizens of this country, want you to stick to development. Yeah. Right?
That's a very important message.
This is the message that these numbers are conveying. Yes, right? And so, in the face of this message, I think the continuing silence of Mr. Modi or his ministers...
But he wasn't silent. He hit out at communal forces and communal polarization when he spoke from the ramparts of the Red Fort.
No, it was a very general comment, and a comment that came at the end of a whole bunch of provocative statements by people who are his fellow travelers. Right? So, I would say that the message of this poll is that people perhaps want him to be more forthright.
So people are saying, don't forget that yours, GVL, is a mandate for governance and development. Don't get carried away by right-wing tendencies.
He has never strayed from that path. It is the people of the country have understood him all these 13 years. It is only a section of a political space, sections of, let's say, Communist Congress, and to some extent the media, which have really painted him in a negative role.
Makes an important point. Most of those comments, most of the debates have been stirred by comments made by elements within the Sangh Parivar. That's where the debate starts from.
For the public at large, the issues concerning the nation are price rise,
and that's the
governance,
point that Siddharth
development,
makes. And that's something that the Modi Sarkar must not forget. That's the point.
That's what the government is focused on.
Let's move on, because we've got a lot of ground to cover over the next 2 hours. Let's take the next question, and a very interesting reply to this question. The question was, has Narendra Modi made ministers irrelevant? A whopping 48%. That's almost half the respondents think in Modi Sarkar, all that matters is the Prime Minister's will. The others don't matter as much. That's a very high response for a question of this nature. The next question, equally key in my view. Will Modi be his own man, or will he be pressured by the RSS? Here are the responses. 47% feel he will be his own man. They don't think he'll succumb to pressure from the RSS. Only 12% think he will be remote controlled by the RSS. 31% think he will strike a balance. Has Modi's victory encouraged communal forces? 61% say no. There again, completely contrarian to what the Congress might like people to believe. 61% don't think that Modi's victory is encouraging communal forces. Asking people a question on whether they feel safe under Modi Sarkar, a whopping 76% feel that they're safe under Modi Sarkar, which essentially, Shekhar, brings out the question that is this concern about polarization then being overplayed? That people don't seem to think that India is getting polarized. Some people in the Panditry might feel that it is. Everybody is very happy and feeling safe under Modi's government.
Well, first of all, Pandits don't conduct polls. Right? Pandits are Pandits because they should be able to see ahead. I'm not saying they are right or wrong, but Pandits don't just analyze what is known. Second, I think I will repeat what Siddharth said. People have voted this government in not for Hindutva, not to build a temple, not to abolish Article 370. People have elected this government because they were fed up of a non-government for 5 years. They were fed up of losing jobs, not getting raises, 4.5% growth, scandals, tiredness, and completely uninspired leadership. So this is a reaction to that. People wanted a strong leader and a strong government. They did not necessarily want a strong leader and strong government of the Hindu right. So once they were looking for that product, He was the only product available that that passed the test. So what people are telling you is also their expectation that they did not vote for polarization. In fact, if you see only 6% people see him as a Hindu nationalist. Now, given the fact that more than 20% of this country are minorities of various denominations, it tells you that even they do not believe right now. They've also been swept by this wave of optimism.
Kamal Farooqi.
And that's why the pressure on Mr. Modi is much greater.
There are people in the Samajwadi Party, in the BSP, who'd like to believe that minorities
Rahul,
are feeling unsafe.
Just continue for a second. In fact, Mr. Modi would have been more comfortable. He may not have liked it, but he would have been more comfortable if 76% had hailed him as a Hindutva icon. Right? Because then that support base is more durable. Now, I'm just making a theoretical point. I know that he'll not be happy. But if it's support on merit and optimism, then you know that you have to perform.
Kamal Farooqi, people would like to believe that minorities are unsafe, but in this poll, 76% people think that they're doing fine. And even amongst the minority, it's not as if people feel that they're unsafe under Modi.
That's what I was trying to say, that even the minorities, they still believe it, in spite of whatever has been said. My friend has been targeting the media. But media has nothing to do with, if anybody is making provocative statements, it's not the media. It is the people who are responsible. They should not have made it. But in spite of this, even the minorities still feel that Modi has come on the development plan. He would continue to do that, and he would not get bogged down by these kind of statements which the people are making. But what he's saying, in fact, it would be very challenging for Modi, because if he continues, this position will not continue for the next 3 months. If he does not control these fringe elements, then the people will start feeling, no, there is a problem.
See, the issue with communalism and communal forces, interesting question about whether they've been encouraged or not. Clearly they have been, if you, in the sense...
People don't think so.
No. 31% is more than the percentage who regarded Modi's victory as a victory for communal forces, right? So there's a significant chunk who still feels that it has increased, and how can they not feel that way? How can they not feel that way when Mohan Bhagwat is issuing statements every other day? Other people are saying all kinds of god-awful things. So there is a sense in which these elements are coming out of the woodwork, being more assertive, testing the waters. The reason why this has not translated into a pan-Indian sense of feeling, a pan-India sense of feeling under siege, is because the deployment of overt communalism by forces allied to the BJP is tactical. It's linked, for example, as the statistics suggest, in Uttar Pradesh, where I'm afraid even the Samajwadi Party is playing the same game.
I'm not
I'm making a general point. Where by-elections are to happen, or closely fought elections. That's where you find communalism being used as a weapon.
Okay.
So
Ashok, for somebody who says he's a Democrat, true Democrat, 48% of the people believe that he's made his cabinet colleagues irrelevant. So it almost seems to be an authoritarian government in that sense, where there's one supreme figure everyone looks up to.
You see, you use the word authoritarian. I think people voted for an authoritative Modi, not an authoritarian Modi, and I think that perception still holds for the moment. There is a slight contradiction, which if you allow me, between this number and the 78% who feel he's got a good cabinet. I think it can be explained in only one way, that people voted for Modi. And they still see this government as a Modi government. They probably can't name half his ministers.
No, and also a question like this can be slightly leading. You see, this to some extent is a leading question. When you ask a question like this, and what you mean by this question and what a respondent means by it could be completely different. Because people might want to have a...
You can't pick fault with the framing of one question which doesn't suit you. People believe that he's made ministers irrelevant. That's the reality.
No, how can you say that? See, Prime Minister is the head of the Council of Ministers. He is the... So obviously, people expect him to be in the command. People expect... People do not want a hapless Prime Minister like Manmohan Singh. I think people have voted for him because they wanted a Prime Minister who is in control and command of the situation.
But he's first amongst equals. There's Modi, and then there is everybody else in the
If I could say something here, Rahul,
that's how it should be. I think there is a Prime Minister and a Council of Ministers.
No, but you can't have a situation where other ministers are irrelevant, and that's something, Manish Tiwari, you would like to believe is true, that Modi has made all other ministers irrelevant. How do you respond to the very high number over there? 48% think the rest of his cabinet doesn't matter.
Well, Rahul, it's a very ominous portent, because in a parliamentary form of democracy, The government is collectively responsible to Parliament. So therefore, what you are really seeing is the negation of the entire Westminster principle when a large number of your respondents believe that the rest of the cabinet is completely and absolutely irrelevant. So I think, you know, very early in the day, people have come to this conclusion that this government is only about one individual, and therefore you're getting the kind of numbers that you are.
Manish Tiwari makes the case
for the Westminster system of democracy is, you know, the jury is really out on that.
Who's not in the government controls the levers of power.
No,
is that the Westminster model?
Both these things
is this their
Ashok,
contribution?
Manish Tiwari makes the point that people have come to the conclusion that other ministers don't matter.
If I could say something.
Here the Prime Minister didn't matter in your government. Nobody in government mattered. All decisions were taken in 10 Janpath.
Yes, Ashok.
I think Congress is
One
the
at a
last
time,
party
please.
that should complain.
Well, I do not know who this gentleman is.
GVL Narasimha Rao.
But let me tell you something very clearly. This is not a debate about the Congress party. This is not a debate about the UPA. If you want to have a debate about
no,
the
we
UPA,
will play out in a moment from now responses on the Congress party and its performance as well. That's coming in a moment from now. Before that, Ashok wants to make a point. Yes,
The mandate was such that the identification of this government with anybody else apart from Mr. Modi is impossible. If you go back to say the 1984 mandate of Rajiv Gandhi, it was the Rajiv Gandhi mandate. And when he lost in 89, Rajiv Gandhi lost. V.N. Gadgil as information and broadcasting minister did not bring down the government. So if this government does well, it is Mr. Modi who does well. If this government loses in 5 years, Mr. Modi will lose.
I think, Rahul,
yes,
the one important thing that we must remember, that if you don't want to do anything, you appoint a committee and they keep on debating. So a cabinet system requires a decisive prime minister. And the vote for Mr. Modi in a way is a vote for decisiveness. So I think what you are seeing is a backlash from a system where the cabinet was too relevant and every minister had become like a towering personality and the prime minister was relatively ineffective, to another system where you have
ministers of state had become towering personalities.
That's true.
The rest were all pygmies.
And I think I didn't say it. Shekhar said the prime minister had become irrelevant. Now you're seeing a backlash where the cabinet is.
So you've gone from one extreme in a sense that to another.
No, when the home minister cannot even choose his own personal secretary. The intervention of the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office extends to such an extent, that tells you something about the nature of the, what I call, borrowing an analogy from Russia, the power vertical that Mr. Modi has erected.
But as of now, nobody's complaining against the model.
Well, nobody is in a position to complain, right? I mean, I'm saying that the authority that Mr. Modi enjoys within the BJP and within the wider Sangh Parivar is so immense, right?